Kevin Flynn, I spoke earlier. I have a number of issues that I hope you guys consider and address. I have some experience in hydro. I used to sell control systems, many of which were put in wellhead hydro, so I understand how it works. I know that you need a river to make it work, flowing water. Those rivers will not die if the dams are taken down. They're going to continue to flow. Whatever power is available to make hydro is coming from the water coming down. I know you guys know this, but many people don't realize that. So it's the head and the flow. You need both. And I am concerned about the financial issues of this because it appears that America First Hydro is essentially, for lack of a better word, like a shell company, or it's an LLC formed strictly to do this project. So these dams are here for, if they get a license, the dams would be here for a long time. We know that Kennebunk Light and Power tried to figure out a way to make them economic for them on their own. I know some people think they didn't, but we have a couple of different studies where they looked at the economics of them and decided it wasn't worth it. So here we have a small company with essentially no resources other than what they put into it for this project. I'm concerned about how they will have the wherewithal to keep these going through a license and do the work required and keep the dams safe if they are to remain. I'm in favor of removing the dams because of environmental reasons. I think the amount of power that they produce is really very small. I'm not opposed to hydro everywhere, but I think small little dams on rivers that have other uses, we can improve recreation and fisheries by removing those dams. And there's another 8 dams upstream, I think that's the number, some of which are also producing hydropower. So how much hydropower does this little river need to do? And there's other jobs that river has as well for our environment. People talked about carbon footprint and that this is saving carbon. Well, when I walk down to the river from my house and catch a shad and bring it home and eat it, I'm getting protein from that river. And I know that producing protein is one of the biggest carbon, one of the highest required, uses more carbon than any other kind of food. So, I think it's kind of a moot point how much carbon we're going to save from those dams. We're talking about fisheries here, the Gulf of Maine. There's a lot of potential there. There's already an economically viable and thriving elder fishery in that river. And there's potential for quite a bit of improvement in river herring, which already exists, but obviously can't get very far up that river. Water quality in the river is a big concern of mine, whether the dams stay or not. They have a big impact on water quality right now. I mean, there is that 2 million gallons of sewage coming down from Sanford. I don't know what the outfall is right here in Kennebunk into our tidal estuary, but it is influenced by, that greatly influences the water quality down here. Most of that sewage that was referred to earlier goes right into Estes Lake. And I swim in that lake, and I know many people fish in it. People have houses along it, so that sewage isn't such a problem down here. But low oxygen and other turbidity, things like that are a problem right down here, and these dams are contributing to that problem. That needs to be looked at very carefully. And recreation, I think, is a big plus, having a free-flowing river for fisheries, for bird watching, for wildlife, but also canoeing and paddling. I paddled upstream during that drought that was mentioned earlier, right in one of the highest points of that drought, from Dane Perkins Dam. Water level was at least 9 feet below where the minimum amount it would normally be at. I've canoed it many times. My wife and I paddled up that stream all the way up to the power lines. And we were out of the impoundment. The impoundment didn't last very long at that point because the water levels were so low. There was still water flowing down that river. And most of it, you know, I know there wasn't much coming out of the dam at Old Falls. There's a lot of water coming into that river through aquifers up on the Blueberry Plains. It's where we get our drinking water from in Kennebunk. And there are springs and seeps all along that into the Mousam as well as into Branch Brook. And they add fresh water, cold water to that river that will also help for fisheries when those dams are removed. And I served on the Conservation Commission in this town many years ago and took water samples up to the state DEP so that we could get that river classified as a Class B river. So it used to be a Class C river, much because of all of the industry on that river. And I'm sure at one point it was probably a Class D river. The river was very polluted years ago, and it's improved a great deal. And I hope that as you guys review this application, you'll look to try and improve that further, because we need good, clean water. We need a sound ecosystem to face many of the environmental challenges that are coming ahead of us in the years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Well, that was the last name on my list. Are there any additional comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Molly Hoadley, Molly, M-O-L-L-Y, H-O-A-D-L-E-Y, and I live in Kennebunk. And I just wanted to say that I'm concerned about the Gulf of Maine, and the impoundment in town is nice, but compared to the health of the Gulf of Maine, which needs these free-flowing rivers and the increase in the fisheries to feed the large predator fishes in the Gulf of Maine, that's where I'm concerned. And I think that the duty of the impoundment is very minor considering the health of the Gulf of Maine.
Thank you.
It's Bill Pasquill, P-A-S-Q-U-I-L-L, and I just want to address the issue of the referendum, which had an outstanding number of people concerned about what was going on. I'm sure you folks are beginning to pick up the vibes that there's issues regarding to these dams, and there's two groups, one for removing, one for keeping. I think that's evident by the commentary you've seen. So since this was a non-binding vote, no numbers as far as costs were concerned, a lot of people simply said, we would like to get more information on this, and we would like the town selectmen to get involved. This has all happened, but bear in mind, this was all under the auspices of not knowing, people not knowing which way to go and wanting more information, and that's why you're here. So I think the vote was for more time, more understanding, more detail. And just to go for one detail, or a detail on one of the items on that non-binding referendum was, the wording was something to the effect of, do you want to continue hydropower generation on the Mousam? It did not say whether they wanted KLPD to continue until their license ran out. They didn't say what the cost would be to provide new types of turbines, if that's what they wanted. So these, if you look at the questions, you'll see that they are very generic, open-ended questions. And I think the result was confusion on a lot of people. We just wanted to buy more time to find out what was going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Reese again. Quick question. First of all, I also want to thank you all for being here. It means a lot. I got a question. I think it's relevant, but I don't really know if it's realistic. It pertains to the studies, the fiscal, financial feasibility studies that have been done thus far. This whole process started well over a year ago. And in that time, Kennebunk Light and Power invested a lot of time, money, energy in exploring the feasibility financially of preserving the dam. And they were very courteous, and they, as far as I remember, presented all the material, spelled it out very clearly, made public. Then Price Waterhouse was hired, right? They did the same thing. All the information was laid out. Once again, it is not financially viable. I'm wondering whether American First Hydro, now I realize they're a private enterprise, and they may be under no obligation to reveal their findings, but somehow they were able to crunch the numbers in a way that they got a different result. And I think it would be of great interest to everybody concerned here to see their findings, how they got it. It's a starting point. In other words, if this really isn't financially viable, then we're all wasting our time. And a lot of people are going to put a lot of energy into proceeding with this whole process, a very long, elaborate process. But I want to know from the get-go, is this financially feasible as proclaimed by American Hydro? Because we've had two examples already where it wasn't, and those were all made public. And now we've got a third, and I think it would be very respectful if they would consent to do that. Now, before we get too far into this, thank you.
Oops, let's get in line with this. Good. A lot of you read the Wright-Pierce report based on data that was given to them by Kennebunk Light and Power, and not necessarily back in the years when things were working a little bit better than they are now. Some say that some of the plants aren't running. Back when we started, we were getting over 2 million kilowatt hours a year. Then along came Wright-Pierce using the data from more recent years when things had changed. And they weren't making as much power, so when you do an analysis, of course, it didn't look as good. Just like your old car, if you forget to change the oil, if you forget to fix the flat before you ride on it, you ruin it with the rims. So what I'm trying to say is that if you read all the reports, then you know the answer. The answer was on page 2 of the GZA report in the table there. As I said earlier, you look at the flow, the slope, the speed of the water, the impoundment area, what you can get for the head, the difference in height between the headwater and the tailwater, and you do your simple calculation dividing by 11.81, and then you get the kilowatts out of it. So this is one of the first things you do when you look at a dam, and you can look at it from, a quarter of a mile away. Oh my God, look at that. And so the point being that GZA looked at it from the way a surveyor would. They, on that page 2, said, well, what is the height of the dam? What is the flow rate? They looked at the USGS flow rates. They put it into something that the statisticians call an exceedance flow rate. And back in the days when they had the belt-driven shoe shops like Kesslen and other plants in town that ran off of the shoe, the leather belts, like the double runner Rodney Hunt that was in the Twine Mill when I got there, and ran the whole of the Twine Mill. They said, oh, why did they use such a small machine? Well, they had 3 shifts. They produced twine 24 hours a day. Why and how? Well, they had an impoundment upstream, the Dane Perkins dam. They had a sluice gate on it. They'd send the guy down there at 6 o'clock, he'd open the sluice gate, and they'd get another 12 hours out of the turbine. And then they'd shut it down for the breakfast hours, and the housewives would get the kids off to school and everything, and the water's building back up again. Then they'd do the whole thing over again. So if you take the modern exceedance curves for hydroelectric generation, you're working between 5 and 9 months a year, and you're using like a 20% curve, and you're getting in the neighborhood of 340 cubic feet a second at Twine Mill, then you plug that into that formula that I just mentioned, the head times the flow times the efficiency divided by 11.81, that's the number you got to remember. And you're going to come up with the kilowatts. So that's what GZA did in that table too. And you would get back home and you turn on the computer. What was that thing Peter was saying? Look up. Oh yeah, GZA. Oh yeah, something about page 2 table. And suddenly you've got 4 million kilowatt hours a year out of those 3 dams. If you upgrade them to the nameplate rating that will give you flows in the 20% exceedance area. Now, you look at the whole river. Sean Teague looked at it. He got a big, long piece of paper and he started drafting it out. He helps make those destroyers that the United States Navy uses, the DGA class or whatever it is. When you do that slope on there, you get a slope of like 0.5 to 2% or so. White water? I don't think so, not there anyway. Anywhere you find a dam and you take the dam out and have white water everywhere else is questionable. So what I'm saying is that I think that Ian Clark is one of the people that's smart in this room. He's looking at the slope, the incline, the difference in elevations, and he's looking at the USGS flow rates and he's saying 20%, 20%, not the 28% that the old timers used with the leather belts and the shafting. He's using the modern methodology of statistical analysis and developing a plan to run the old ones, to get things going, get a flow of dollars and cents. And then he's going to start drilling holes in the dam and popping in these void hydro units, modular ones. You got a little plug, you stick it in there, and you got a wire coming out, and you plug it into the grid, and you're making electricity. So I think we'll find out very soon, maybe. Who knows? Maybe the whole thing will tip another way.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Hoffman. My last name is spelled Hoffman. I became interested in the dams when all this blew up in this town. So I started researching the history of the dam. And there's a book written by Edward Bourne. It was written in 1872. You can find it online. There's a nice reference for it under, I think it's archive.org. It talks about the first sawmill and dam being built on our river. in 1672. That was the reason why this town was founded here. If you walk along the banks of the Mousam River, you'll find homes that date back hundreds of years because of the way that this town was developed was because of that river. I looked into finding out a little bit more about the Kesslen Dam, and I contacted the Maine Historical Preservation Commission and found out that in 2009, the Kesslen Dam was deemed eligible to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. It has never been placed because the only person who can place it is the person who owns it, which is KLPD, and they've chosen not to place it up to this point. It's interesting to note that the town of Kennebunk is one of only 10 communities deemed by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission to be a certified, I think it's called a certified government, I forget what the exact letter is, but anyways, it makes it so that we're able to work with federal agencies. I've been in contact with the Maine Historic Commission, and they said that they would file with you because of Section 106. And they've asked for more information on the Kesslen Dam, on above ground and archaeological surveys of that area. I think that when you look at our community, and there's a lot of people who are interested in restoring a fishery here, there's also a lot of people who have lived here for a long time, and their families have grown up here, and the river has been part of their life. The river is out their back door, they kayak, they fish, they canoe. I've used the river from both falls to the sea. I've been where it's free-flowing, and I've been where it's still. And the river is in the heart of this community, and I hope that when you do look at licensing these dams or not licensing these dams, you can consider how it will affect our entire community if you remove the dams. So that's it.
Thank you for your comment.
Just a couple of thoughts by way of clarification. My wife said earlier, I'm showing to you, my wife said earlier that if there's any transfer of the hydroelectric assets, it is in the charter that it must be voted upon and passed by a majority of the townspeople. That is because these are municipal hydroelectric assets. The KOPT trustees don't own the dams. They are exactly what the name says, trustees. They hold them in trust for the people of the town of Kennebunk. It is not CNP. This is not a for-profit operation. KLPD and those hydroelectric facilities were meant to offset the electric costs that were taken off the grid to keep our energy costs down. So to talk about the fact that it's not worth it to keep them going is preposterous. They're not meant for profit to begin with. They're to serve the town of Kennebunk. So that is why they are still public assets. They are not currently generating what they can, and what their full potential is because they are being mismanaged. I would also like to point out that the impetus for not going for a relicensing is because of the undue pressure that is being brought upon the town and the trustees by outside special interests. Otherwise, I think they would have been left alone and they would be continued in operation and generate power for many, many years to come.
I live in Kennebunk. I want to submit to FERC the hydro production #1 PDF that KLPD provided to us on February 24th, 2016. It's a record of the hydro production between 2002 through 2015, although I've done calculations for what the average kilowatt hours would be for those 13 years when the Wright Pierce report was being generated. We didn't have a full year in 2015. So this is a document that shows the yearly kilowatt hours generated by the dams, by dam, by month, by year.
Thank you.
Alex Mendelson, just a quick reference. I have no respect for history in this town. I served on the Conservation Commission for over 20 years, and I can attest to that. And we're talking about local history here going back 200 years, 300 years. We built subdivisions in areas that were populated by Native Americans thousands of years before any white settlers came to this area to build mills and build to make twine. We built subdivisions along the sea road where there were archaeological artifacts destroyed. And that is just emblematic of some of the destruction and disrespect for history. You talk about history going back 200-300 years. Let's go back a little bit further. That's what I have to say about that. Now, as far as outside special interests, it has nothing to do with the delineation of the border of the town. We're talking about an ecosystem. It's nothing to do with that. And I think the FERC, people understand that. There's nothing said this evening about one outside special interest that I may be misquoting it. Perhaps one of the gentlemen here could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the Maine Lobstermen Association. They are importing bait right now from Asia, and lobster is a big deal in Maine. You know, tourists. Did any of you have lobster for supper tonight? But the cost of bait in recent years has skyrocketed. And the reason is that river herring are scarce. So it's just another example of trying to restore a river so you can harvest them in a sustainable manner and help address that economic problem. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's a real honor to be able to speak with people from the federal government. It's really something. Thank you.
I believe that's it. If there is any other questions, if not, thank you for your participation. We've got some really good comments on the record, and yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I wanted to remind people also, as you're leaving, if you know of people who would be interested in our process who weren't able to be here tonight, please help yourself to some copies of the scoping document and pass them out to people who might want to keep in touch with this process.
Yeah. And if there are no other questions, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much for your participation.